friends, I'm Trisha Morris from Club Scrap, and this next 20-minute workshop is going to leave you in stitches. We are going to learn how to make a beautiful 6x8 stitch-bound book. Let's get started. Let's take a quick look at this beautiful book. You can see that the spine is stitched. It has a nice firm hard cover, and then it has tons of inside pages that come decorated and ready to go for you to be able to add your pictures. To make this beautiful book, I'm using Club Scrap's Regatta Page Kit, as well as a piece of heavy-duty mat board, along with a few other important supplies, which I'll share with you as we work through the project. I also happen to have a bundle that you can get that has almost everything you need to make this project all sold together in one set. We'll begin, as almost always, by trimming some papers. So if you've ever taken a class from me before, you'll know that I often talk about grain direction of paper being important. And because this is eventually going to be wrapped around our mat board covers, I want to make sure it wraps the easiest way possible. So double check the grain direction by holding the paper from an edge, rotate one turn, see how stiff that is. You can see how dippy that is. So place this paper into the trimmer, 2 sheets of the red, so that it dips horizontally from left to right. And then we're going to trim this at 8 inches. Then rotate and then cut this 8x12 at 10 inches. So now you have an 8x10, and these pieces are going to be used to wrap our outside covers. I'll just set that aside in my little paper organizer that I have here. And then that leaves you with a scrap we can use for later for decorating our book. And then the 4x12 strip that remains can be trimmed at 6 inches to create a set of 4 little 4x6 photo mats. Kind of handy. Next, let's take a sheet of this blue plain. Again, you can substitute with paper from your stash. I'll see if I can find the grain here. Oh, it definitely wants to go this way. And I want the paper to dip easily from top to bottom this time. So we'll place this in the trimmer at 8 inches. And then we're going to rotate the 8x12 and cut at 9, 6, and 3. Let's stack up these strips that we just created, set them aside. We're going to score them later. And that does leave us with another 4x12, which we'll cut horizontally at 6 inches to make 2 more photo mats. I have 9 sheets remaining from this beautiful Regatta Page Kit. So they all get trimmed the exact same way. To save a little time, I'm going to take one of them and show you how it's done. So let's take this one print here, checking the grain direction. It needs to dip easily top to bottom, and I'll cut it at 8. This piece is going to grow up to become a page in our book, and then the other strip gets trimmed at 6 inches to make 2 more photo mats. Now you don't have to cut these at 6 inches. I'm just doing a little advanced prep work. Go ahead and trim the remaining 8 pages the exact same way. You can go back later and prepare the die cuts as well as the cut aparts we've provided in the Regatta Page Kit to decorate your book. And then the last thing to trim is this big piece of mat board. This is quite heavy duty. I would say it's double the thickness of a cereal box. Believe it or not, this trimmer can handle it, but it definitely takes it to the top of its capabilities. So we're going to slide this in at 8 inches. And the most important thing about this cut is that we stabilize pretty heavily on the clear bar that's on the trimmer while you pull down on the handle. Then rotate, and we'll cut this piece at 6 inches. And that creates 2 6x8 mat board covers. With my trimming done, I'm going to swap my trimmer for a score pal. Earlier we made a series of these 3x8 pieces, and I simply want you to put them into the score pal vertically and score them at 1.5. All of the rest of the 8x12s need to be folded in half, and I'm not going to score them. I'm simply going to fold them in half by placing them in my score pal vertically, and then bringing the bottom edge up to the top and use my score pal as a jig to help me fold like so. The reason the paper folds so easily is because when we were trimming it earlier, we were trimming so we would fold with the grain. If we had folded against the grain, you'd have a very crumpled, less attractive fold. Now with all of these pre-folded, we can burnish them all almost at once with a bone folder. That saves a lot of time. We can also fold these other scored pieces so that the bump of the score goes on the inside of the fold, and the technical term for this fold is a hot dog fold. Next, I'm going to put the pages in order that I want them to be stitched into the book, and also in pairs that are nested together. So this is my first page of the book, will be this one on the left, nested with one in a light blue shade. Then I've chosen this print on the outside with light blue on the inside, medium blue with dark blue on the inside, print with the medium blue, and then the last page, because we have an odd number here, will just be a single page. The next thing we need to do is pierce stitching holes into the seams, into the fold lines of these pages, and spacers. When I first started making books, I used a cork board, and you can use one as long as it's the height of your spine. It doesn't have to be this great big cork board. And then you can even use a thumbtack or a push pin or some sort of an awl. But after making books for a number of years, I came up with a clever way to hold my paper to make it even easier to pierce holes with a piercing tool. I've also designed a template in the instructions that I'll make available to you. I don't want you to worry about it right now, but I'll show you how this works. I've torn the template that I made from the back page of the instructions, and I'm just going to fold along the edge of the template. You don't even need to trim it from the instruction page. And it shows you where the edges of the pages go. And I'm just going to take two of these little spacers and nest them together and place it in the channel on my paper piercing cradle. And then I'll take the template and drop it in there so that the lines of the template match up with the edges of the pages as indicated. Then there are several more lines on here. So I'm going to pierce into that line number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So now I have beautiful pierced holes directly into the fold of my spacer. And then separate the pieces. You can do the same exact things with the actual pages. So put them in the cradle if you have one. Line up your template and pierce down into the valley fold of each piece. Now all of my signatures have these beautiful holes right in that fold line, and honestly that's probably one of the most important things I've learned through my years of making stitched books like this. Once all these are stitched together, this is going to be called a book block, and each individual pair of pages plus the last single at the end is considered a signature. This is the head of the book and the tail of the book. I'm going to be trimming off some pieces of ribbon. This ribbon came right in the Regatta Page Kit, and I'm going to use 2 pieces. They're 7/8 inch double-faced satin here. You can use any type of ribbon. Now you can see here, maybe, there are 6 holes, and these 2, the second and third hole, are about 1 inch apart. So I'm going to take this piece of ribbon, check the grain of the ribbon, making sure it's looping the direction where it would wrap around the side of the book. I'm going to place it between those 2 stitching holes. And I'm just going to take a piece of tape and temporarily attach that ribbon right in that spot. There's another pair of stitching holes right here. I'm going to do the same thing. This taped area will serve as a reminder that this is the top of the book and should always be visible to you. Never put pages on top of your taped ribbon. Next, I'm going to grip my signature, my first signature, with my hand so that my fingers are inside and the tape is at the top. And I've got my 2 yards of wax linen thread or cord added to a tapestry needle, which is a blunt tipped needle. So you don't need a pointy needle here. And I'm going to enter the first hole at the head of the signature from the outside to the inside of the fold, and then keep pulling that thread through inch by inch until you have about a 5-inch tail. Then I want you to come back to the outside through the second hole, and then over the ribbon into the third hole, back out and over the ribbon and down to the bottom of the signature. Once you reach the bottom of the signature, just check both sides to make sure there is no slack in that thread. If there's slack, then your book won't perform as well as you would like. Next, and this is an important step, you need to take not a page, but a spacer, place it right next to and below the taped ribbon. So the taped ribbon always stays on top. Notice I'm entering the hole directly next door to my first signature. My thumb is on the inside of the spacer just to kind of keep it open to me. And then stitch in and out the same exact way you did before, going over the ribbon on those 2 sets of holes. Next is a very important step. Go ahead and open the spacer and just give a little tug on the thread very gently. You don't want to tear the paper. and make sure that there is no slack on the inside of that signature. Then close it and close it forever. And then take the 2 pieces of thread, the tail that you started with plus the thread that still has the needle on it, and tie it into a knot. And if you want, you can repeat that make a little double knot. At this point, you can take the extra tail, we'll deal with it later, and simply tape it down next to the ribbon. Again, this is a great way to always know where the top of your book is and the top of signature. Now it's time to add our next signature, and I'm going to make sure the print is right side up, and I'll place it beneath the spacer and take my thumb, kind of hold that open to me, and I have a neighboring hole, so it's easy to know where I need to bring my needle next. Down into the inside of that fold, and then stitch in and out the holes all the way down to the tail of the book. Once you reach the bottom, it's time again to get rid of all of the slack. Do this every time and do it with care. And then close forever. And do you see how we need to connect these 2 things? We're going to use a special stitch to do that. So take your needle and go underneath the previous stitch. And to see how I can bring my needle from the inside to the outside of the book. And you pull until a small loop forms. Once you see that loop in the thread, just drop the needle through the loop and you have successfully performed what we call a kettle stitch, like a tea kettle. And pull that tight to form a knot, and now everything's connected. So the next thing, and remember, be careful, you have to make sure you grab a spacer and add a spacer between every single signature. So stitch in and out till you reach the top. Again, now that you're at the top, remove all the slack. Such an important step. I can't stress it enough. Then you will perform the same type of a stitch that you did before. Bring the needle underneath the stitches connecting the previous 2 signatures till you see it peek out. Pull until a loop forms. And then drop the needle through the loop to make the kettle stitch. Pull until a knot forms, and you're good to go. So the next set of pages I take are going to be just my regular page signatures. So open them so you can see to the other side. Everything else stays closed forever, and connect and go all the way down, kettle stitch, go back up with a spacer, down with a page, up with a spacer, and then down with the very last page. So it's a very repetitive process once you get the hang of it. To my beginners out there, please don't let this project frighten you. It's so much fun once you get the hang of it, but just a warning that a little practice goes a long way. Remember, when it's time to attach the very last signature, it's just going to be the 1 single page. There won't be 2 8x12s with this one. This time when you perform that kettle stitch, you do it the same exact way, even though it's your last page. Go through the loop and pull snug. But then you can repeat it and do a second one, just to be sure. Then I can take the needle and re-enter the last hole I left, bring it to the inside of the book, and then you can even go underneath the long stitch, go through the loop that you make, and pull to secure it on this side as well. And then sometimes I just weave it through my long stitches, and you can trim the tail. Then go back to the head of the book right at the top and take the needle and thread it back onto the original tail, and then re-enter the original hole back to the inside, and then perform that little knot, and then thread it on through to secure. And there you have a beautiful book block. Next, we need to take those 6x8 red pieces and wrap them around our mat boards. I'm going to quickly show you how to do that. If you got our little kit, you will find some bookbinding glue. Just take that and spread a generous kind of amount onto the boards while you're holding it in your hand off your work surface. Then take a foam brush, which will also be included in the little kit that we've put together for you, and spread that glue in long, even strokes all across 1/2 of the board. Then rotate the direction of the board and do it again. Make quick work of this. The board is thirsty. It will absorb all the glue if you work too slowly, and make small, tiny little strokes. Place this glue side down, centered onto the smooth side of this beautiful red regatta paper. And repeat for the other cover. If you want, you can burnish the paper on the other side to make sure you don't have any air in there, but what I love about our bookbinding glue is that it just tends to not do that. I'm taking a scissors and I'm going to miter the corners. Here's the biggest mistake people make, is they don't leave any paper extending beyond the tip of the corner. So when you cut a wide V into the corner, be sure you leave at least as much paper that matches the thickness of the board. I'm leaving about 1/8 of an inch. The board is approximately 1/16 of an inch thick, but don't make the mistake of cutting right to the corner or you'll have a brown corner. Repeat for the other cover. We need to turn these flaps around the board. An easy way to do that is to take a bone folder and run it along the edge of the board, then along the side of the board, and that turns the paper up at 90 degrees, then fold it over to make the other 90-degree turn. Repeat, score, fold, fold, score, fold, fold. Repeat. And like always, you would repeat that for the other cover. You probably have enough glue in your brush from adding glue to the cover that you have enough to cover at least one long flap. I always start with the long flaps first. Notice I'm holding this off of my work surface while I'm applying the glue, so I avoid getting glue on the outside of my project. Repeat for the other long flap first. Notice that with that type of glue application, the flaps stick immediately. Another thing I love about that glue. Now I'm going to tuck in the paper that extends beyond the tip of that corner. Do you see it? I'm just going to tuck it in. Just kind of like you're wrapping the tiniest gift ever wrapped. Now we can do a test. When I fold this around, look at that beautiful corner. Isn't that gorgeous? So at this point, I will tuck and test drive. Then at this point, I'm probably going to need glue, so I'm going to add a little bit. I'm avoiding the corners and I'm adding it at the edge here. And then you fan to the outer edge. Notice I'm holding this off of my work surface. If you can't do that, put a piece of fresh scrap paper down every time. Maybe like an old magazine would work well. As always, repeat for the other cover. And now I have two beautiful wrapped covers. Keep in mind that that skill, once you learn it, whenever you want to make a book, you'll always have a professional and beautiful corner. At this point, I still have my ribbon on my book block that's all taped down. You can either leave the tape there or you can remove it. Take some of the glue that's left in your brush and just give that ribbon a little tack down so that it stays right where you want it. At this point, because the cover is the exact same size as my book block, I can actually apply the glue to the cover, which is really kind of a handy thing, especially if this is your first book. Doing it the same way, holding the cover off of my work surface, applying the glue, and then brushing it across on one side, making sure you get to the edges, because remember, this is what holds your whole book together. It's just the bond between this and the first page of your book. Then carefully aim to center this onto the existing book block here. And all you need to do is kind of do a little tap down and then turn it on its side. That way you can see the edges perfectly and everything should line up. Again, the cover is the same size as the book. As soon as possible, open the first page to make sure that the glue hasn't stuck to this page and that you can remove any air that might be there. Just burnish it nicely. Then tack down the ribbon on the other side of the book. Apply the glue to the cover. And then of course burnish again, making sure everything bonds well with the surface. If you use too much glue, this is when things are going to ooze out. So you just want to be really careful when you're applying that glue. So now that your covers are attached, I would recommend maybe placing a heavy object. I have an old dictionary that I tend to place on projects like this so that they dry nice and flat. As I mentioned, our page kits do come with, in this case, 2 sheets of printed cut aparts and the bonus die cut sheet. All of this can add a lot to decorate and embellish your book. And then we in addition have ribbons, we have tags, we have enamel dots, buckles, all kinds of things you can use to decorate your book. And so here was my original prototype that I did decorate a little bit. You'll notice I took one of the die cuts that came on the sheet and created a shaker card with that, or shaker embellishment. Isn't that fun? Every page has something fun, a little caption, a little journaling prompt, and you can even adhere pictures or any other items right to the spacers as well, like in this case. Now, I didn't stop there. I tested my formula on a different collection. So I used a past Club Scrap page kit called 𝐂𝐨𝐧𝐧𝐞 and made this beautiful, beautiful book. The paper on the outside is this metallic gray text weight paper. And again, all of the printed papers and embellishments look stunning on this book. Some pages more simple than others. It all just depends on what collection you're using and how much time you want to put into it. So the cool part is that all of these instructions can be recycled over and over again with various Club Scrap page kits to create a really successful project. As you may already know, Club Scrap does release a brand new, freshly designed page kit every single month. And not only can you make awesome projects with our page kits, but of course you can also make incredible pages. Each month I have a video workshop where I'll guide you through using the entire contents of what came in the box, so there's nothing left to store or organized when you're all done. I'd love to welcome you to Club Scrap. We have some specials that we're offering this week, so be sure to visit our landing page for more information. We'll see you soon.